Name that tune. It doesn't matter. Got one into my left lung. I usually try to switch them back and forth. But I didn't realize the left was getting so full, and I went one further than I should have. There were some years ago when I first started doing these things. In the last 4 or 5 years, I must have talked about Matt Lauer. He was on NBC show, to the Day Show or something like that, and I'd sit there and I'd watch him in the morning. I'm going, look at this fucking prick. And I'd look at him and see, I know that guy from here. I don't even have to be breathing his fucking animosity to understand what kind of prick he is. I could see it through the big screen. Probably 27 inches. And I know I talked about it. Couldn't stand him. I knew he was not a decent person just by looking at him, just watching the prickish way he spoke to people. And I thought, if we could just find some way to get rid of him. I didn't need for him to die. That would let him die hero. You know, probably the best thing that could have happened to kids all over the world that, like Michael Jackson and people that play his music for them as children, probably the best thing could have happened to them is if Michael Jackson had been shot while abusing somebody. That way everybody would at least be able to go, you know, instead he just died in his sleep. Oh, all the twisted stuff. The same way with Kobe O'Brien or Bryant or whatever the hell his name is. I may be suggesting things and alleging things. I think there was a problem with him raping some woman and then giving his wife an $8 million diamond. Everybody forgot that because he's a good shot. And then he dies in a helicopter. Now they got a fucking statue of him next to his daughter. Where did they put his hand? You see, the thing is, sometimes people need to die in a way that people remember the way they lived. Otherwise, they get mistaken and follow him through to the next level and think he's a good person. And then they say, well, he did this. And they're like, well, I guess we can't talk bad about that. He set a record once. Whether it was in basketball or rape, I don't know. But he set a record once, so that makes him a decent person, they say. And I know. You're about to pass away from this because you think I'm about to talk about that poor guy and his sexual fucking... but I wasn't. It wasn't about that at all. I was talking about just reminding you when I was like, if we could just get rid of Matt Lauer in some way. And then when the Me Too movement came up after he was already involved in the Me First movement, I'm supposing. I don't know what the story was behind him. I didn't care enough to follow it. I was just glad that he was caught up, and I feel sorry for whatever victims he had. But I was glad to see him gone. I asked for him to be gone in a way that everybody could forget him. And now, when's the last time you heard Matt Lauer's name outside of me? That stupid little prick. Little prick. That's all he was. I just had enough of him. But if we can forget him just like that, doesn't it work? Right? And so I've got a new little prick for us all to forget. And I'm not even looking up his name because I don't want it to be remembered. If we learn anything from the Fountainhead, Uncle Elwood Toohey told the Taggart chick the way she'd get rid of Howard Rourke is just to not write about him, because the worst thing you can do is to write about somebody. That means they live on forever. So he would ignore him so people would forget the concept of this spectacular man. You see how it works? Okay, that poor guy. They talk about him, talk about him, talk about him, talk about him. I said it long ago too. Just quit fucking talking about him and people will forget him, because he does nothing but talk. You have nothing in your memory of him doing anything other than the things he told you that he does. It's not about that poor guy. It's about this guy. I watched the DNC. This is like breaking news. I watched some of DNC 3 tonight. I just got finished watching it. And I'm watching that Tim Walz guy up there, and he's talking, he's talking, he's talking. You'll get the connection in a minute. And his kid is standing up, and he's like, yeah, and he's crying. I'm looking, I'm next to Victoria. I said, look at that. I said, this is joy. I said, they're going to talk like there's something wrong with this, because this kid's looking at his dad, who's, you know, he hasn't screwed anybody over as far as we know, other than the way that somebody might want to say he screwed somebody over because he spent 24 years in service. However that goes. Any of you non-combatants out there, any of you people that never even served, just shut the fuck up. Because I have deeper stories than that you are not worthy of. Why are you not worthy? Because you won't even want to fucking hear them. You block them out because it might crack your brain to have to fucking use some of your own logic on something with the truths that have been told to you. And instead, no, I block that shit out. So I'm not going to waste good stories on shitty soldiers. What's a shitty soldier? One that never was. And it doesn't mean you're a shitty soldier if you're a non-combatant. Everybody was getting out of the army after their term. It's the people that get out and act like they should have been there. I know one guy that came back, and it was over by the time he came back in. All the other fucking people, they're off in militias somewhere, I guess, acting like they were somebody special. You were a fucking radio guy. You're the first guy to get shot. How do you think you're going to tell other people how to survive? And I'm looking at the kid. He's 16, 17, and I said, Victoria, look at that. They're going to give him shit for fucking being emotional and all that. But they did. And then I said, because I've worked with the mentally handicapped, this side of the table, not theirs, but I'm able to crawl over tables and wrestle just to gain an understanding of each other every once in a while. There must be order. I looked and I said, that kid, he may be autistic. I'm watching his rhythm and the way he moves and his joy and his love. And I said, the worst part of this, I told her, I said, they're going to look at it like love from the Democratic side, and on the MAGA side, they're going to attack that kid. They're going to say things about him that are just awful. And I said, but the problem they don't know is that once the Magalomaniacs voting for that poor guy and following his lead, attack this kid that is full of love and mobile, and they say he's highly intelligent. They attack him. They just lost another demographic. They're making a mistake, these fucking knuckleheads on Vixen News, if they start talking shit about that kid's problems, because they lose another demographic. It's the people that are loving and supporting the children that still act as persons. They're still persons. They have thoughts, they have emotions, they have a goal in life, even if it's just to get up in the morning and go to bed at night. There's a purpose to their lives. That in itself makes them persons. Some people, they just can't sleep. They say they're insomniacs. So what's your purpose? To wish to sleep and never succeed? And then right after I get done saying that to her, I'm like, these fucking people, they're going to make a mistake. And then it had ABC people, like 5 of them, 2 here, a couple of women, and a guy in this knuckle fucker in the middle that looks like he was probably your high school class president that doesn't even come back to class reunions anymore, because he said he was going off to DC and never made it anything further than his knees. A page that won't turn. This fucking guy, he totally takes it out of context. This woman sitting next to him said something really nice, and he was responding to that, and then totally out of context. He says, oh yeah, and by the way, Tim Walls, he's mentioned his kid is a nonverbal, and which, that's convenient. I always say, never bite a verbal. But nonverbal, you can get away with it because they just point a lot. But it's got nothing to do with the politics we're speaking of. This is just about keeping your job and getting away with things. But that guy, he says his son, he's a nonverbal, he's highly intelligent, and he learns it. And I'm sitting there, I said, you stupid son of a bitch. The one that poor guy calls fake news, these ABC people sitting there, and you got this prick in the middle that just has to bring it up. And I guess he's looking for a job at Fox because he's the perfect kind of prick. And I quit looking for his name because I get the sense the way the woman looked at him next to him, he might not have a job much longer. And if he does, well, you might have to start watching the Midas Touch if you want to get any news that's worthy.